on the TSP program as well. I'm going to be going over the new application workflow in the new registry and also the renewal process in the new system. So before I get started, I'm going to keep my camera off to ensure a good connection. Right, so this is the agenda for today. I mean, for my section, for my presentation, this is what going to be covering today. I'm going to be providing some training events update for your awareness. Then I will go over the new registry. We'll also cover some important updates about the TSP program. And then, like I said, we'll go over the application and renewal process. So I have a slide here about our training efforts. We had a live webinar last month to present the TSP orientation and conservation planning training as an alternative to AGNR, since we know new TSP applicants are not able to access AGNR at this time due to a system issue. So we're offering the TSP orientation and conservation planning course on, through live webinars on Teams. This is the first time that we're doing this, and so far we are receiving good feedback. So another one will be offered on July the 17th. It is possible that more opportunities will be offered in 2025. So please visit our TSP website for more information. For those potential TSP applicants, not sure we have some on this call, but if you're thinking about becoming a TSP or if you're just getting started on this process, I suggest you click. I'm going to be sharing this presentation with Jeff later. I suggest you click on that link. The link is on the slide here, and then register for that July 17th webinar. It's going to be you're gonna be on that for like, I don't know. I think it takes like 2 to 3 hours, and then at the end you take a quiz, and then you'll be getting a certificate. So by participating on this webinar and passing the quiz, you will be meeting this requirement. Like I say, we're doing this because we're having some issues setting up brand new Agler account for new TSP applicant. So with this, we get to move TSP applicants forward in their process. And this is a great mechanism to provide that information to applicants and to have a little bit more of interaction with TSP applicants. This is a more personalized approach. Okay, so now I'm going to provide you with an update or of where we at on, with the new NRCS registry. Um, we have had a lot of great plans to get this. This new system is more user friendly, and of course, we're going to continue to make improvements as we go. We have developed our minimally viable product, which that's the NRCS registry. We call it the MVP, which means that it essentially gets the job done. It gets the application and certification process moving forward. Before releasing the system, we did some testing in the new system prior to the development to make sure that the certification, modification, and renewal workflows, were working as expected. Um, Also, I want to mention that a new Final TSP site has been developed. The new Final TSP site is now linked on our TSP website, and it is available for TSPs, program participants, and NRCS staff to use. So please, if you haven't experienced the new Final TSP site, I suggest you go to the National TSP webpage. You're going to find the link to the new Final TSP site on that webpage. So click on that. It'll take you straight to the new site, and then just, play with it. And if you are an existing TSP, try to search for your name and make sure that all the information is correct. So during that testing phase, we ran into some small issues that would have impacted the certification process. So this resulted in a new fix. That's the Canon release that you're seeing on this slide. That Canon release was deployed at the beginning of the year to correct some of these issues prior to the deployment. After that release, the new NRCS registry, of course, was deployed, and it was linked on the NRCS TSP website. We send out public notifications to inform all TSPs, TSP applicants, and NRCS staff. That was around March, and we have been working with certified TSPs and TSP applicants with their applications needs since then. So we have been pretty busy with that. Um, and with that, I will go to the last door here, the Daffodil release, which was deployed last month to add some new functionality that will make this new system a better product. So we finally, are getting, the functionality that we need to make to be able to do more things in the new system and to facilitate the application process and the certification process in this new system. Okay, so what does this new product bring? As you can see here, we have a lot of improvements that we are looking forward to, and one of them is the fast track renewal process. As many of you guys know, going through the renewal process, there was a lot of information and training that was expected from the TSP at the time of renewal. Um, I'm sure we have some existing TSPs on this call, and maybe some of you have experienced the renewal process in the old system. So, a lot was required from TSPs at the time of renewal, resulting, delays in the renewal, and also lapses in certification. But with this new system, it's essentially a fast track process. Renewals are almost like automatic. As long as you renew within, that renewal window, as long as you becoming eligible for that renewal, which is 120 days prior to the expiration date, it's pretty simple. You will not be required to complete any additional trainings. You will not be required to provide new samples of work, anything like that. All you have to do is agree to the terms and conditions of the TSP program for another 3 years, and then you submit the renewal application. So it takes, I don't know, not even 10 minutes to get your renewal application in. But we will be going over this later. I have a few slides about the renewal workflow in the new system. Another big improvement is the final TSP site that has been released, like I mentioned. We have kind of concentrated this product, less clicking, less redundancy, reusing credentials and qualifications in the application is also possible. In the old system, TSPs were having to upload the same training certificate and the same diploma, over and over and over every time, I practice, require the same degree or the same training course, but not in the system. So we can reuse those, qualifications and certifications and training certificates. An upfront orientation screen for the TSP orientation and conservation planning course. This course was required for every single conservation practice. So now this will be a requirement that has to be met at the beginning of the application process in order to move forward. So basically in the old system, all practices require the TSP orientation and conservation planning course. So like I said, TSPs were having to upload the same certificate every single time for every single practice. So now we were like, okay, why don't we have this as the very first requirement? So when you start an application in the new system, the very first thing that you will have to do is to upload that certificate to prove that you have completed the TSP orientation and conservation planning course. Um, and then you should be able to continue working on the application. We're going to be focusing on reliable TSP certification. You know, Also this site is hosted on the Pega platform, which gives us the potential to, integrate this site with other NRCS sites. And we're gonna talk more about that in the next slide or two. And then also something new in the TSP program is our third-party certifiers. We now have MOUs, memos of understandings with some professional organizations, which means these organizations can also recommend individuals for certification. And the last one here, we now have the ability to act on behalf of the TSP applicants to assist them with the application process. This one is a much needed improvement because it makes it easier for us to assist TSPs with application and modifications and renewal. So basically, I now, as a regional TSP coordinator, I have the ability, to log into the system, pull up your account and initiate a modification for you. Or if you have initiated an application and maybe you're running into issues, I can do stuff on your behalf. I can fix stuff in the application. I can upload documentation for the TSP and, eventually get it to a point where you just need to sign and submit that application. So here is a big picture overview of where NRCS registry is now and where we're going. We now have a new system that allow us to manage application and certifications in a new final TSP website. The next thing we're looking forward to is enhancing our reporting features. So right now, we do not have any reporting functionality in this new system, but this is something that is going to come with future releases. This is more for the business side. For state coordinator, regional coordinator, and then of course TSP branch at the national level to be able to run reports and, report numbers on how many TSPs we are certifying in every state, and then, the categories and also in every single practice. Also the ability to generate reports, at least on a monthly basis to see, kind of come up with a list of TSPs that, are about to expire or that the expiration date is coming up. That way we can reach out to them and provide assistance, with renewing their TSP agreement. Also, I know our developers are working, trying to integrate AgLearn, so new applicants can have access to AgLearn as soon as they log into the new NRCS registry. With the last deployment, they were able to implement, part of that functionality. So hopefully this is going to be something that's going to be resolved soon with the maybe with the next release, um, which I'm hearing is going to be deployed sometime in the summertime, like in next June, July. So we'll see what happens. And then the bigger vision for NRCS registry is the integration with other systems like conservation desktop and managing TSP conservation planners within registry. So eventually that's what's coming down the road, or at least that's our vision. So I have a couple slides here about some big changes in the new NRCS registry. The first one is with the professional credentials. This is more like for the certified TSPs. Certified TSPs in this new system, they would not be required to update external professional certifications or licenses when they expire and when they are renewed. In the old system, like TSPs were having to update the expiration date of their licenses and certification. And it was really hard to keep up with that because some licenses they expire every year, or they're depending on the certification or license. So there were like every 3 years or every five. So it was really hard to keep up with that. And then as a result of that, TSPs were being removed from the public side and, losing business. So now that's not going to happen. We're not going to keep up with that in the new system. And part of that is because, when the TSP signed that certification agreement, the TSP, agrees to, maintain their professional licenses, certifications, um, and other permits. So the TSP is responsible for keeping up with that. We're just not going to keep up with those expiration dates in the system, but the TSP, has the responsibility to make sure that, those licenses and those certifications are current all the time. So another change is that the TSPs will not be required to upload completed work to the NRCS registry. In the past, in the other system, we used to have a completed work section. That's kind of how it used to be called in that other system. And then TSPs were required to upload their completed work. So basically, every time they develop a plan for a customer, they had to log into their account and then upload those plans. So we're not requiring that at this time, and that's because we do not have a completed work section in the new registry. So that is not a requirement. But the certified TSPs are still required to provide two copies of their work, one copy for the field office and then one copy for the customer. All right, so now let's talk about obtaining the TSP certification. It's all about meeting the TSP certification criteria. And this can include, requirements at the national level and then at the state level, if applicable. A lot of time, I know that the national TSP criteria is posted on our national TSP webpage. TSP applicants, they often review that information, but it's easy to forget, requirements at the state level. It is because, we do not have those requirements included with the national criteria. But, you know, f- for brand new TSP applicants, the state conservationists, they must provide any state level requirement for a TSP certification of a specific practices. And then the national criteria for TSP certification is updated and maintained at the national level. So in order to obtain a TSP certification, an applicant must meet both, the state level requirements if applicable, because you know maybe the states don't may not have state requirements for every single practice, and then meeting that national criteria. So you have to meet both in order to achieve, that TSP certification for a certain practice. So, like I mentioned, the FY25 national criteria is out there on the NRCS TSP website. There is a new lookup page within that Excel spreadsheet that will give you the certification requirement for the selected technical service and then the certification option. We hope that this will give the TSPs what they need without having to go through the entire criteria spreadsheet. So when you go to our website, you're gonna see a link that's gonna take you to this Excel file. You can download it, save it to your local computer, and this file has the FY25 certification criteria for all the practices. Just keep in mind that this national criteria is reviewed every fiscal year, and it's possible that maybe we can have some changes from one fiscal year to another fiscal year. So always make sure that you have the latest version of the criteria. All right, so this slide here is the state level requirements that are also posted on to the website. I mentioned that, we do not have the state level requirements included with the national criteria, but we made some efforts and we were able to compile a list of state level requirements for all states. The TSP branch, state cons, state discipline leads, and of course, state coordinators put a lot of work into this. The idea is to allow TSP applicants to review this information and to be aware of any requirements at the state level before applying for certification. So, in other words, if you are thinking about applying, for example, agricultural energy design 120 in South Dakota, I suggest you download this spreadsheet, take a look at their state level requirement, and if they are requiring the TSP applicant to have a PE in South Dakota, you gotta have that in order to apply. So if you don't have that, most likely you're not gonna be meeting, the state level requirements for South Dakota. So you can meet national criteria, but if you don't meet the state, level requirements, you are not gonna achieve certification for that practice. Okay, so now I'm going to discuss the state coordinator role within the new registry. The state coordinator role is not to review the national criteria. It is to review the state requirements and samples of work that's applicable to the technical service that the TSP is submitting. Um, we have NRCS has a national instruction, instructing, us, the TSP branch at the national level, and also the state coordinators in every state. Um, how to review and process these applications, accordingly. So from that national instruction, so the state coordinators are responsible for coordinating the review of the sample of work with their state discipline leads. So basically, they're going to be reviewing your plans, your sample plans to make sure that the TSP applicant is familiar with NRCS guidelines, criteria, standards, and specifications. Um, I want to mention that the state that the sample of work is based in must decide if the sample of work, shows familiarity. So, if you are applying, for example, let's say you submit a brand new application, you're applying for certification in three states. So that sample of work most likely is going to be developed for your resident state. And then, your resident state will be the responsible state for completing the review of that sample of work. Now, other state may review the sample of work as part of their state level certification recommendation, but you do not have to, you're not required to develop a sample of work for every single state. And if for some reason, once your residents state complete the review of your sample of work, if something, let's say, is not meeting, you know, you will be returning that sample of work to the TSP, and we will be providing comments on the findings. And that way you can work on those deficiencies, make corrections, and resubmit. Also, the state coordinator role is to review, like I say, the state level requirements. So the state TSP coordinator selects if the TSP applicant has provided the correct documentation to meet or not to meet the state requirements. So if the applicant doesn't meet, then the coordinator must select a reason why it doesn't meet and then communicate that to the TSP in writing. So just following the same example, if you are applying for that, practice the 120, and when you take a look at the state level requirement spreadsheet, if South Dakota requires a PE for a certain practice, then you must upload copy of your PE to prove that, if you have a PE in South Dakota and that your PE is current. So if for some reason you upload something else, or you indicate when you are working on your application, you indicate that South Dakota does not have any state level requirements, most likely they're going to indicate that you do not meet the state level requirement, and then they're going to be, deferring your application, and we will not be certifying you in that practice because of the state level requirements. And lastly, the state coordinator records their recommendation for their state. As you can see in the slide, coordinator must recommend to certify or defer each technical service in the application based on the regional coordinator's review of national criteria and the state level review of samples of work and then the state requirements. So once we complete the review at the national level to verify national criteria, if the TSP applicant is meeting all national criteria, we'll then reach out to the state. The state will coordinate the review of your sample of work and they will be verified state level requirement for their state. So if your sample of work meets the criteria and if you're meeting, state level requirement for every state or for that state, most likely, the recommendation will be to certify. If something, let's say maybe you're not meeting that national criteria or your sample of work doesn't meet or you're not meeting state level requirement, then the recommendation will be to defer, which means, the application is just going to go back to the TSP applicant. That way, we're going to provide you with with the reason for the deferral. That way you can work on that, and make corrections if necessary and then reapply. So if a say recommendation is to defer a practice, let's follow up on this a little bit more. Um, then it has to be for one of the following reasons. The application not meeting state level requirement, like I mentioned, a sample award that does not demonstrate familiarity with NRCS guidelines, criteria, standard specifications, or an overriding STC decision, a state conservationist decision. Um, which is not common. But like I say, we gotta have a reason, a real reason for deferring an application. And every time an application is deferred, we do our very best to document everything in the system. And then provide that TSP applicant with the reasons for that deferral and then the solutions for that deferral. All right, so now we have the regional coordinator's role in the review process. Like as I mentioned this morning, a while ago, I am the regional coordinator for the Central Region. So as a regional coordinators, we manage and coordinate the review of new applications and modifications, with the states. We serve as the main POC for the TSP applicants. And if needed, we pull in the state POCs, maybe if we need to clarify something, maybe something about their state level requirement that maybe we need more clarification on that, or maybe some kind of issues there with communication, then we may pull them in. We also make sure the application is complete and that all documentation has been provided when you submit that application. Remember that, once you submit the application, by policy, NRCS has 60 days to review and make a determination. Once you submit the application, we're going to be doing a first review at the national level. And it's just to make sure that the first thing we're going to be looking for is that the application is complete and that you are providing the correct documentation because the system doesn't understand. For example, system can be asking for the TSP orientation course, and it's going to require you to upload something. You're supposed to upload a completion certificate to prove that you have completed that course. But we have seen cases where TSP applicant just upload something else, and just to be able to bypass that and get their application in. So, like I say, first thing is to make sure the application is complete, the right documentation has been provided, and then we're going to proceed with verifying national criteria. And then we are responsible, like I say, once we determine that the application meets the national criteria, we're responsible for reaching out to the state to coordinate the review of the samples of work. and then the verification of state level requirements, and to make sure that we have that recommendation from the state. At least, we try to have their recommendation at least 5 days prior to the application due date. So here is the regional certifier's role in the review process. Just in case you didn't know, maybe if you're not aware, we have state coordinators at the state level. We have the regional coordinators at the regional level, and then we also have regional certifiers. And so, the regional certifiers, um, they're responsible for pretty much, they do the last review of your application, and then they finalize the application, and then they enter into agreements with the TSP. Um, that pretty much kind of summarize everything. Um, One thing I also want to mention is that renewal applications, they go straight to the regional certifier to make the determination to renew. These applications are not reviewed by state coordinators and regional coordinators, since no additional requirements will be required in order to renew. So basically, those renewal applications, they go straight to the regional certifier for review and approval. Um, the regional certifier is responsible for entering third-party certified TSPs from recommending organization. So that's something that, state coordinators and regional coordinators, we basically don't have any responsibility over that. These recommending organizations will be submitting a list of individuals to NRCS, and then they will be entered in the system by our regional certifiers. Um, they will also finalize, like I mentioned, new and modification application after regional coordinators in the states have reviewed and made recommendations. So let's just talk about a traditional TSP application. So, the application will come to the regional coordinator for the review of the national criteria. Then it'll go to the state TSP coordinator for the review of your sample work, um, review of state level requirement, and then the state recommendation. It's gonna come back to the regional coordinator for a second review to make sure that everything has been reviewed and that a state recommendation has been recorded, and then we'll send that application over to the regional certifier for a final review and then for final certification. And then the business applications, they also go straight to the regional certifier. They certify the entity, the tribe, or any public agency that's associated with a certified TSP. So now I have a few slides here to go over the application workflow in the new system for new applications, modifications, and renewals. I will cover the steps to renew your TSP agreement in the new system. That way, certified TSPs become familiar with this process. In the last bullet here, the decertification process. This is something we don't talk enough about it. So, but since the renewal process has been streamlined significantly, I want to make sure we briefly discuss this process. So, existing TSPs in potential brand new TSPs understand this process. So here are the different applications type that you will see in the new system. New applications is for those TSP applicants that are applying for the first time, or for those TSPs that did not renew their certification during the renewal period and are now expired. The renewal application is an application that's submitted 120 days prior to the certification expiration date. It is important that you pay attention to the expiration date and submit a renewal application when you're eligible to renew your agreement. That way, you don't have to come back and reapply as a new TSP. Um, and then the modification application is an application that's submitted to make any changes to your active certification agreement. And that can be adding or removing practices or locations. And by location, I mean maybe adding new states to your certification agreement or maybe removing states from your certification agreement. One application type we don't have in this new system is the revision application. In the other system, TSPs were able to make changes to an application after it was submitted, but that causes many issues, while reviewing those applications. So now, once you submit an application, it is going to stay logged until we review and process that application. This is a quick overview of the application process in the new system for new applications and modifications. The new application or modification application is submitted in the system, just like in the other system. That's basically the very first step. Um, Once submitted, the regional coordinator will review the national criteria. Here we make sure that those professional certifications, trainings, education, and experience requirements are being met. So this should create more consistency, by us very reviewing and verifying national criteria at the national level. And then states will only review state level requirements and technical review of samples of work with the assistance, of course, of their state discipline leads. Because a lot of time, the state TSP coordinator, that's more like a collateral duty for them. In this case, Jeff, he is responsible for those applications that involve, energy practices. But what if we receive we receive an application in South Dakota with maybe agronomy practices or forestry practices. In that case, he's going to be coordinating the review of those samples of work with the appropriate state discipline lead, let's say state agronomy, state forester, state biologist. And then they will make the state recommendation to certify or defer the technical service in the application. After, the state records their state recommendation, with the regional coordinator, like I mentioned, we review to make sure everything is done, everything has been recorded, and we then send the application to the regional certifier for final determination and certification. This is more like an FYI, just to let you know. This is a good resource for a brand new TSP applicant. We have a YouTube video that kind of goes over submitting a new application and a modification in the new system. I'm not gonna play this video since you can, pretty much watch it later when you have, free time. But just wanted to let you know. Right. So now let's talk about the renewal process. We're trying to come up with training videos, training guides, and more resources for a, TSP applicant and 16 TSPs. And we're going to be posting all these videos and user guides to our national NRCS TSP webpage. I'm going to be going over the TSP renewal process for the benefit of 16 TSPs on this call. Because we do not have a video for the renewal process, so that's why but I have a few slides with a few screenshots to guide you through the steps. So here, as you can see in this slide, the certifications are good for 3 years, and they will expire unless, they are renewed prior to the expiration date. Remember that you can renew 120 days prior to the expiration date. We suggest submitting a renewal application at least 60 days prior to the expiration date, because by policy, NRCS has 60 days to review and approve. So this is just to avoid a lapse in certification. And like you mentioned, renewals are pretty simple. So all the renewal application that we have processed so far since the system was deployed are not taking not even a week. They're being processed in like a day or 2 days. But just in case, since we have 60 days to review and process an application, make sure that you have your renewal application in at least 60 days prior to the expiration date. Um, that way we avoid a lapse in your certification. Once your renewal application is processed, you'll be getting a new agreement with a new expiration date via email. This is going to be a system auto-generated email that's going to go out to the TSP with the new TSP certification agreement. It's going to be attached to that email. So here we have the renewal workflow. We just went over the, workflow for brand new applications and modifications. So this is the renewal workflow. And as you can see here, it's pretty simple. So the TSP submit a renewal application in the new system. And then that application is just going to go straight to the regional certifier. And then, regional certifier will review and make a final determination to certify or defer each technical service. And like I mentioned, renewal applications are not reviewed by the state coordinators and are not reviewed by the regional coordinators. So, they're pretty simple to submit and pretty simple to review and approve. All right, so now I have a few screenshots to show you how simple it is to renew your agreement in this new system. So once you log into the NRCS registry, you will see your work list and your current TSP agreement is going to be listed in your agreement section. So to start a renewal application, you will need to click on the three vertical dots in the My Agreement section. They're kind of hard to see, but they are, as you can see on the slide here, you see your My Agreement section, and then your agreement is going to be listed right there with the expiration date. And then if you hover over to your right-hand side, you're going to see the three dots. So you click on the three dots, you're going to get three options. You're going to get the option to view your agreement, to modify, or to renew. If you're eligible for renewal, please do not click on the modifier because it's going to create a modification application and then you will not be eligible to renew. The modifications, those modifications will come to the regional coordinator into the state coordinator. So, they will take longer to review and to be processed. So click on the three dots and then click on renew in order to start a renewal application. So once you click on the renew option, you will then get a pop-up box that informs you that, you renew your agreement. Only the expiration date or your TSP certification is updated. To update other information such as credential or technical services, modify your agreement. But at the time of renewal, we do not want to do this. If you're needing to make any kind of changes, I suggest you renew your TSP certification first, and then let's do a modification to make any necessary changes. So you check the first box to verify that you meet all qualifications for the technical services in your agreement. And then you check the second box to state that you understand that you will not be able to update any technical services, location, or credentials in the renewal process. So once you check the two boxes, you then click renew. Um, Once you click on renew, the system is going to generate a renewal application. So just all you have to do is verify that your contact information is correct, because I know sometimes, your home address may change, your email or your phone number. So verify that information. If you need to update that information, then click on the pencil icon that's going to be next to your contact information, and then you're going to have the opportunity to update your contact information. Um, if once you update your contact information, or if your information is accurate, no changes are needed. You can click on the agreement pending signature tab, which is going to be the very last tab on the table of contents. The system is going to generate like a draft agreement. So please, review the draft agreement and then click on the sign agreement and submit application button to submit your renewal application. Um, this other window is going to come up. So read the certification statement and check the box to confirm. And so read the self-certification statement at the bottom and then check the box to confirm. So once you check the two boxes, you can click the sign and submit my application button, which is going to be enabled after you read those two statements and then check the boxes. Um, and then once you click on sign and submit my application, your application is going to be finally submitted. So once you have signed and submitted your TSP renewal application, you will be returned to the NRCS registry home screen, which will display that your application has been submitted. As you can see here, you're going to see that message with the green check mark indicating that your renewal application has been submitted and that it is pending for approval. That means that the application is in the regional certifier's work list, and the regional certifier will eventually, start the review process and will finalize your application. When your application is finalized, you're going to be getting a system email. For some reason, you submit a renewal application, let's say today, you don't hear anything from us, you don't receive any kind of notification. Please feel free to reach out to your state coordinator or to myself, um, because I know the system notifications are going out, but could be possible that something is wrong if you're not receiving this email. So please let us know so we can look into that. All right, so now moving on to another topic. I want to take a few minutes to briefly discuss the certification process. We know the renewal process has been streamlined. It is almost automatic, and states don't get to review renewal application. But that doesn't mean we're not going to check your work. So when you renew, remember you agree to the terms and conditions of the TSP program, which includes maintaining your certifications or licenses, making sure that they are up to date, and also meeting NRCS standards and specs and others. So as you can see here on the slide, your state can propose to decertify a TSP for any of these reasons. So the slide here shows the certification workflow. Your state must comply with our quality assurance review process, which means your work is subject to a technical review. If your work is reviewed and deficiencies are found, NRCS can request corrections in writing, and we can give the TSP a deadline to provide those corrections. So let's say you submit a plan for a customer in South Dakota, and then during the quality assurance review process, let's say your plan is reviewed and, South Dakota will be, doing a full technical review of your plan. And if they find some deficiencies, they're going to communicate those deficiencies in writing to the TSP and can give the TSP 30 days to correct those deficiencies. So it is your responsibility to correct and submit those corrections to NRCS, within those 30 days. If the TSP doesn't respond, or if the TSP keep failing to meet NRCS standards and spec, then NRCS, in that state can propose the certification for not meeting NRCS standards in this case. Remember that not meeting the NRCS standards and specifications, that is our cause for decertification as, specified in our policy. or for any of the other reasons in the previous slides. So then the TSP branch will communicate with the TSP in writing, and the TSP will have the opportunity to respond. Once we gather all the facts and we review all the documentation, and the TSP branch will be making a determination. And when I say we review all the documentation, that can be the results from that quality assurance review. The correspondence between the NRCS in that state and the TSP. Um, you know, Notes from the field office staff, things like that. And then of course, the responses that we get back from the TSP. So we're gonna gather all the documentation. We're gonna try to gather as much as we can. We're gonna try to get as much details as we can from both sides, and then TSP branch will be reviewing all the facts, and we'll be making a determination. If they certify, of course, the TSP will be removed from the list of approved technical service providers, and that TSP will not be showing up on the final TSP website, and of course will not be able to do work for for customers, program participants. So as a reminder, we have resources available to you on the TSP website. Here we will be posting, important announcement. We're posting training videos, user guides, and any other important update. Every time we have a training coming up, we try to, put up a banner announcing, the date for that training. So, I suggest you visit this website often. That way you can stay up to date. This is the new Final TSP site. The link is on the NRCS TSP website. For those of you who are certified, please try to look here and make sure that your all information is correct. I guess the first thing is make sure that you are showing up, and then if you are, make sure that all your certified practices are correct. Your contact information is correct. Then if something is wrong or something is not correct, just please let us know. And then same thing. If you are not showing up, or you believe something is not right, please feel free to reach out to your state coordinator or to myself. That way we can put in a support ticket to look into that issue, and try to correct what's wrong with your certification on the final TSP website. So here's our contact information. If you need of assistance, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. That's my email address, and also my phone number. So, feel free to reach out to me via email, or, feel free to give me a call or shoot me a text message. So I think this wraps up, my presentation. This is kind of our first session of the day. I can open it up for questions, or Jeff, we can just, go to the next presenter, and then I can take questions at the end.
Yes, thank you, Miguel. If you have questions for Miguel and you want to type them in the chat, go ahead and just ask. So if we don't have any questions for Miguel, or if you want to contact him directly, I've put his email in the chat, and I've also put the NRCS National TSP website link in the chat. All right, thank you, Miguel. On the next agenda item is working as a TSP in South Dakota with NRCS. A few highlights I want there is, and I've also put a link to the state TSP website in the chat. We have edited some of our documents, which basically we went in and fixed broken links and clarified contacts for TSPs and clarified the steps for NRCS. And the documents that have been updated include technical service providers step-by-step process document for implementing conservation practices. The program participant, the producer, the farmer, roles and responsibilities, the TSP's roles and responsibilities, and NRCS's roles and responsibilities. Using a TSP for barn design, which is a form that hopefully field offices are giving to the producers when they come in and say they want to address some resource concerns. The pre-design meeting checklist and the pre-construction meeting checklist. All those forms have been updated and they are on the South Dakota TSP website for your use. The next topic I want to bring up is the pre-design and pre-construction conferences. If you're involved as a TSP, you are to lead these meetings because you are in charge of the project. It is your project. One thing I've noticed since I've have been attending some of these pre-design meetings is that some TSPs are just letting NRCS, whether it be John Lentz or Justin Bogema or Dan Ostrom, are letting them take over the meeting and making sure everything's done. While we are there, and we are there to answer questions and to make sure all the pertinent information is presented, it is your responsibility as TSPs to lead the meetings and to bring all the necessary forms, such as the pre-design meeting checklist, the South Dakota ADS 6, which is our information release that allows NRCS to give information, to give the producers information to you, the TSP, and the South Dakota Engineering 62, the county zoning approval verification, which is something that the that we need completed for the ranking process for EQIP. Any questions on that? You can raise a hand or just ask. And another thing, the next topic is what constitutes a complete design. And I've been the one last ranking period that was looking at a lot of submitted designs. And I'm looking to make sure all the proposed practices are in the design and the supporting documentation, calculations, etc. And one thing we ran into last year was the engineer was designing the waste storage for like a barn, but they were saying that the roof was going to be completed by another engineering firm, and they didn't have that information. South Dakota requires the roof design to be completed for that project to be submitted with the design for ranking. And I heard, well, other states don't require that. Well, we're South Dakota, and we do require that. I refer to the practice standard and the statement of work to make sure all necessary deliverables are in the designs. I wouldn't really call it a technical review because I am relying on a lot of your I'm relying a lot on your PE stamp. But if I see issues, I will dive deeper into the design and supporting docs to make sure all the information is there. The as-built reviews, when they're submitted, there is more of a technical review. And I'm looking to make sure the as-built, what is as-built, meets our specs. One thing is, please, if on the as-builts for any changes, make sure they are in red and they are legible and easily identifiable. But I also realized when I'm one project I kind of made a fuss about. Well, when the field office got the as-builts, they just scanned it or printed it and then scanned it, and it was all in black and white. So I apologize for that one. Another thing I do now is the TSP QAR findings for the engineering practices, the ag waste stuff. I've done 2 years of them. Some great work is being done and is following NRCS standards and specs and the associated statement of work. There's just a few minor paperwork things that aren't completed. Both the projects that were selected for QARs this year had hog buildings being decommissioned, or the ag waste concrete pit decommissioned. And the common deficiency for both of them was the lack of a nutrient management plan for the specific storages being decommissioned. If you read the decommissioning standard, it requires a nutrient management plan for that specific building. And it also, we want to see as much sludge as practical to be able to be removed. And it may require 2 manure tests, one for the liquid and one for the sludge. And then, like I said, the nutrient management plan specific for that storage is to be developed. Now, just referring to spread the manure according to a nutrient management plan, if we don't have specific testing for that, that's kind of hard to do. And when we get to that point on future plans, work with John and Jason on the animal nutrient management team so we can get that coordinated so these practice standard can be followed. Any questions on that? Okay. We had a CPA DIA that was completed last year in South Dakota, and that was kind of sprung on us. And the field office should really let us know, or let the ANMT know, John Lentz know, hey, we've got a contract for one of these, just so we're prepared for it. It was kind of sprung on us. So if you could do us a favor and you are going to do one in South Dakota, let John Lentz know or me know. But we really don't anticipate a lot of demand for CPA DIAs in South Dakota because of the way our structure is with the nutrient management team and how we work with USTSPs. But if we do have them, just let us know. That's all I've got for this agenda item. Do I have any questions, comments? Anybody? If not, I'll turn it over to John Lentz for an update from the A&M team.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Morning, everybody. Glad you all could make it on today. Yeah, Jeff asked me to talk about 4 topics, so let's kind of run through those real quick here. The process of working with A&MT, basically historically, my team has kind of been the clearinghouse for all things related to feedlots, ag waste, so forth. So, typically how our process works in South Dakota is a producer would come into the field office, talk to the local staff, so they have a resource concern they want to address. The local NRCS staff fill out what we call a nomination form. They'd send that to me. We kind of amass those over the course of the year. And then typically once a year, typically about this time of the year, April, May, our team gets together, goes through all the nominations, makes assignments to the different staff members, and then we go out and start planning with those producers. So that's the typical process in South Dakota. Sometimes what happens is we've passed that nomination deadline period. Then a producer comes in the field office looking for assistance. At that point in time, the field office will probably just contact me. I can still go out and visit with the producer, but what we may tell the producer at that point in time is they have kind of 2 options. They can either wait another full year for us to go through another cycle before we start providing TA, or they can work with a TSP like one of you individuals. And so that at that point in time, we would probably give them the TSP registry information. They can look up a TSP and hire someone to do that work if they wanted to go ahead and apply for funding that fiscal year. And so then sometimes we get stuff, in between those two where maybe the producers contacted one of you directly as the TSP. And I just kind of asked that it's really good if you can just keep us in the loop on those. So if you're working with a producer directly, maybe they haven't even talked to their local field office or anything, just give us a heads up, let us know this is on the radar. And then we can talk about things like getting a pre-design meeting schedule or something so we can all just stay on the same page. I just kind of always said, we kind of act as the clearinghouse. I try to help coordinate, what's going on with the producer, the field office, the TSP, the watershed coordinators that are out there, the program staff, and, helping with the county zoning stuff. So it just is kind of good if I can be informed right away who's doing what in what county, and then I can keep track of it. So I guess that's kind of the process of how the team works here in South Dakota. We certainly have plenty of work, so we're glad you guys are all out there helping us get stuff done. We couldn't get it done without you, so very much appreciate that. Status of where program applications are at this year. So basically, we received 17 EQIP applications inside of what we call the Ag Waste Fund Pool. That's the ones we basically use to fund all the ag waste projects in South Dakota. There was a request with those 17 projects. The total allocation request would have been $5,388,000. So basically 5.4 million is how much it would have taken to fund everybody. So far, 10 of those 17 EQIP applications have been funded for about 2.9 million. So we funded about 59% of the EQIPs. And then we also had 2 applications that came in within the South Central James RCPP area, which is another funding source, very similar to EQIP, but it has a very specific area that it works within. Those 2 applications were also both funded. So of the 19 total applications, we funded basically 12 in the state right now. What's the future bring? I don't know. Last year we were able to acquire some additional funding throughout the fiscal year. We're in a little bit of a different environment right now, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. You might just encourage your producers, if they're not in a big rush, just to sit tight and wait and see if some additional funding filters down this summer, but no promises. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. So, okay, that's kind of the status of where the EQIP and RCPP was. Another topic, last minute submittals. One thing that kind of throws a wrench in things is if we get stuff that kind of comes in the door the last minute. And what I mean by that is typically our EQIP ranking process, our typical ranking deadline is going to be somewhere in that February, March timeline. And it really is tough if somebody walks in the door January 1 and says, oh, all of a sudden now we have a project we want to get in for EQIP. And so I'm just kind of putting a plea out there. If you guys are aware of projects, definitely try to get those pre-design meetings scheduled. Ideally, I'd say by like Halloween time, so we have a couple months to work on them. But Thanksgiving, I'd say would be like a drop dead date of having a pre-design meeting so we can start planning, because the things that all have to fall in place prior to ranking is we have to have the engineering design completed, the nutrient management plan has to be completed, they have to go through their county zoning. So sometimes the county zoning or getting nutrient management plan done, if they don't have soil tests in place, if we wait till late in the year, December, January, to start that, sometimes it's just technically feasible, not possible. So really try to make sure that we're aware of those early in the fall and get those pre-design meetings scheduled so we can get things moving along. The other one that Jeff wanted me to mention was eligible practices. Under the Ag Waste Fund Pool, there are 43 conservation practice standards that are listed within the Ag Waste Fund Pool that are eligible for funding. I think what we'll do there, instead of me going through the whole list and just naming them, maybe Jeff, we'll just maybe see if we can throw those up on the TSP site somewhere so you can go look at those. But a couple of the ones that have caused problems in the past was like water wells. We're not eligible, water wells are not eligible to be cost shared under the Ag Waste Fund Pool, and also like shelter belt plantings are not. So those are a couple I've seen in the past where they ended up getting thrown in the contract, and then we couldn't actually fund them. We had to pull those back out. So, and just a little bit about, even though there's 43 conservation practices listed, that doesn't mean that, if you come in with just one single practice, it's going to stand a good chance of funding. The way we look at our funding in South Dakota, since we always have kind of limited money, more people looking for money than there's money available, our top priority is going to be existing AFO, CAFOs that have a resource concern on site, but do not have any kind of a containment system in place. They're going to be kind of our top priority. Animal mortality facilities are also going to be fairly high on our list to fund. And then the ones that kind of fall in everything else category, typically what we'd see is maybe someone with an existing containment system on the site that was put in maybe 15, 20 years ago. The system, their operation has changed some, so they have a legitimate resource concern, but they want to come back in, maybe and add a stacking pad. Those are going to fall below. We're going to try to get those ones that don't have any containment first, and then animal mortality facilities kind of next, and then those existing systems are going to kind of fall down to the third ranking. So if you have those out there, I'm not saying they can't get funded, but they're definitely not going to be a top billing. So just be aware of that when you're planning with producers, that you might want to encourage them to say, well, this doesn't have a great chance of getting funded unless there's a lot of funding available this year. So just so they're aware. And we can talk about all those things again at the pre-design meeting. So that's why it's important to get those scheduled so we can talk to producers. So, okay, that's kind of all I had, unless there are questions.
Any questions for John? All right. As always, you can always reach out to John or myself if you do have questions, and we will work to get the questions answered. All right. The next agenda item is input from the TSPs, and the first one is, what information should the producer know before contacting you, the TSP, when working with NRCS? When they go in the field office, what information would you like for that producer to know before they contact you, or at least early in the process of planning for their project? I feel like some producers, when we get to the pre-design meeting, may not have a full understanding of the program or process of getting the design. What would help you and ultimately NRCS for what the that would, for the producer's knowledge? Any input from anybody?
Hey, Jeff, I'll jump in, maybe lead this discussion just a little bit, maybe get some
Okay.
thought going. Something that we worked on with the documents that we edited and updated on the TSP website for South Dakota was a little bit about planning discussions and initial thoughts and expectations that the producers kind of need to know about in situations where maybe they're going to move their animals underneath a roof, and they have a situation where they have existing lots or they have areas that they would like to use. And what we like to be able to get those producers to really understand is the expectations for either full containment or abandonment and closure of those areas. To me, that's kind of a big one that's coming through is it seems like there's kind of a disconnect about what the producers understand for what's going to happen for full containment of those areas versus the expectations for, cleaning up the lots, getting a nutrient management plan in place for application and what's come out of those lots, what's going to be involved in closure, obstruction removal of fences, that kind of thing. So anybody has any thoughts there on what would help with those sorts of communications with producers, I'd be open to hear it.
All right. As always, hit me up or Marcia up and with your ideas there. The next item is, and we've seen several producers this year with their new barns having storage capacity for solid storage. Are producers coming back to you guys complaining about not having enough storage capacity or adequate storage? We've heard from several producers that their storages are full sooner than they expected. So that we're hearing that. Are you guys hearing that too, or is it just NRCS that the producers are talking to? Then should the bed pack have a specific O&M concerning the amount of bedding added and the management of that bed pack? Because we all designed that storage, that bed pack storage, to be so high for so much volume, and some producers are going in and cleaning it out too early and not having enough bed pack in there. Should there be more discussion or O&M about, okay, this is how we design your bed pack for it to be this high, and this is how much bedding you should be adding?
I'll just throw one comment in there, Jeff. You know what, where I see the biggest issue with it. So if the producer has a combination system where he maybe has some contained open lots and a bed pack barn, then he has kind of an overflow. He can put some of that manure in the contained open lots if necessary. The ones that are the real issue is where we just have a barn and there's no other containment on the site, so everything is expected to either stay in the barn or the stacking pad. And the issue we're seeing is they get full, middle of the winter maybe, and then they just start stacking the manure around the yard, and then basically it's uncontained. So then they're not meeting our practice standards. So those are the ones I really think we would have to need to be a little extra careful on, maybe even, consider making those stacking pads a little bit bigger, but at least start thinking about that, because that's where we can run into a real issue.
I guess the takeaway here is really talk with your producers about the management of their bed packs and the stacking pads through the early design process to figure out what will work for them, so we don't have uncontained manure. If there's no further comments or questions, we'll move on to Jim and talking about professional engineering laws in South Dakota.
Thanks, Jeff. I'll let you guys get this. I got a little bit of a slide deck I wanted to cover with you guys, so we have this reference in the documents for the meeting when it's done recording. We'll make sure everybody has a copy of it. I just want to say thanks to Jeff and John for the leadership here. Between Jeff as our engineering coordinator and John and his team helping work with you all in pre-design meetings and planning conversations with producers, my job's pretty easy. So I get a real simple process here, a simple task of just going over a little bit about what we see with certification and PE requirements and non-TSP PEs as well as TSPs. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. If we're able to share, you guys able to get that figured out? Ooh, there we go. Nice. Perfect. Thanks, Joy. All right. So first, a little bit about these situations where we might be working with any of you who are working on getting your TSP certification, but we've kind of had this disconnect or this break in the registry where the registry for quite a while hasn't been up and running, and now we're up and running. We kind of have these situations where we have a PE who's doing work on engineering practices, but just aren't yet a TSP. And so we have the ability in those situations to work with professional engineers to get the process completed and get these reviewed and approved for installation and payment. We are working on a supplement for South Dakota specifically to our National Engineering Manual. And in our National Engineering Manual, Part 505, the first thing that we require from anybody who is a PE or a TSP, either way, we have to have this certification statement where we're saying that you need to certify to the best of your professional knowledge, judgment, and belief that these plans meet specs or meet applicable NRCS standards. So what happens in a situation where we're not a TSP or we're working with a non-TSP professional engineer, someone with job approval authority within NRCS, typically somebody on my staff most often. There may be cases outside of the ag waste arena where we might see someone at the area level performing these reviews, but essentially we're just going to do a cursory check. Like Jeff said earlier, we're relying on that PE stamp for what we want to see in these. We're not going to do a deep dive into anything unless we see something obvious that we need to go back to. But essentially, we're just going to do a cursory check to be sure that we have a conformance with our practice standards, our statements of work, and those documents. All right, next, please. So basically, that NRCS checker, once they're done completing that cursory review or that check, is going to sign off on the acceptance of the work. Going to sign off on the cover sheet, and we're going to the NEM supplement that we've just about got published. I believe it should be out soon. We'll get that to everybody too, just to lay out kind of where the policy is and supplement to our NEM, so all of you have a copy of it. It's just going to include this acceptance statement that the design drawings and specifications appear to meet the standards and specifications for NRCS. The other thing we're going to spell out in this supplement is any significant changes that occur after that design has been accepted are going to require a new review prior to approval by the PE. So NRCS and the PE are going to need to work together, and then we'll apply another similar acceptance signature and a statement to that new documentation. All right, next. There we go. Oh, got to go the other way. Nice, thank you. All right, and as far as the as-built side of things, we're going to require as-built drawings and sufficient documentation, which all of you as TSPs are very familiar with. That's going to be provided after construction is complete. We will perform a field visit because essentially, in the case of a non-TSP PE, The onus of a final approval for this installation and practice payment lies with us as NRCS. So we're accepting the PE's work, we're accepting the PE's seal. We're just doing cursory review, but we're going to do a quick field visit just to be sure everything's done, be sure everything looks like what it says the as-built are saying, and then we'll complete a similar official acceptance process, just a cursory check. If the as-built documentation agrees with what we saw in the field, we'll look all that over and we'll include another statement of acceptance of that PE's documentation. Next. And then a little bit about actual TSP work here with the term prime or coordinating professional. Here in South Dakota, we have what is known as the South Dakota Blue Book, which has all of the South Dakota codified law and regulations in kind of a one-stop shop location. There's a link there to that Blue Book. It's the South Dakota Board of Technical Professions. And you'll notice right here, I just basically copied and pasted in this simple statement from Codified Law 36-1845. In the case of documents for projects which involve multiple licensees of more than one profession, then the title or index sheet shall be sealed, signed, and dated by the prime professional in responsible charge of coordinating the various technical professions involved in the project. And it says, in addition, each sheet shall be sealed, signed, and dated by the licensee or licensees who prepared or who are in responsible charge of that sheet. So this ultimately really applies to all of these roofs and covers structures that we're seeing come through, where we're getting a set of signed and sealed plans from a barn company. Their professional engineers are signing off on their work, and you all as TSPs are essentially the overarching prime professional in charge of the overall project. You're doing the foundation work, you're doing the design for the slabs, you're doing the designs for the walls, and the roofs and structures are coming into you from these companies. So I just want to make sure that we in NRCS and working with you as TSPs who are the NRCS professionals that are doing the work with us aren't getting sideways with the South Dakota requirements for prime and coordinating professionals. Next slide. So basically here, NRCS nationally requires that a TSP certify the design and installation of engineering practices. The TSP is required to be a licensed PE in pretty much all of our practices, with the exception of a lot of our irrigation practices. We're able to take either a licensed PE or a certified irrigation designer in the case of the irrigation work. But all ag waste practices, they're considered the practice of engineering underneath South Dakota state law. So they have to be certified. TSPs must be licensed for those practices. Therefore, it kind of stands to reason that the licensed PE or TSP has to sign and seal this warranty of technical services provided. You're all pretty familiar with that. You're signing off on that. Just because of the way you read the Blue Book and the interpretation of application of seal and signature, basically that means we want to see a seal on the warranty of technical services provided form. So now go to the next slide, please. And that kind of leads into, it's a segue into what I want to say next. So basically, as the prime professional over your projects, what we're going to accept is that signed and sealed warranty form as your certification as the prime professional. Now, as far as the interpretation of that particular section of the Blue Book, that 36-1845, maybe interpretation of that language, you as the TSPs, you might want to go ahead and put your seal and signature and date on the title sheet or the index sheet or the cover sheet of the drawings and the specs yourself. I just want to leave that open to you for your interpretation of state law. South Dakota NRCS, like I said, we will accept that signed and sealed warranty form as that prime professional certification. Basically just sign, seal, and date, put a little bit of a prime professional designation on there, overseeing the work of all the PEs that are involved in the project, and we're off and good. So that, I think, is everything I wanted to cover. Anybody have any questions for me? All right. Thanks again for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Jim. That's the last of our agenda items. Do any of you have any topics you want to bring up while you have all of us on here? Any questions, comments? Was today a waste of your time? Anything? All right. If not, I was supposed to tell you this earlier, but I did start recording this and we should be able to get it. Yes, Miguel.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be on this call today. I guess I have one last comment. Just want to remind, those 16 TSPs out there in South Dakota, and also to inform, new potential TSP applicants in South Dakota that per CPAs and DIA deliverables, TSP is responsible for coordinating, and arranging a meeting between all parties, that includes NRCS, the TSP, and the program participant, just to, I guess, address any questions, for collaboration. I know the program participant is responsible for selecting a TSP that's certified, and the technical services are listed, in their contract. But a lot of time the program participant reach out to TSP, hey, I need a nutrient management plan. Can you develop that for me? The TSP would be like, yeah, of course. And then the TSP will go ahead and develop that. But you want to make sure that you are certified for the technical services listed in that contract. Maybe the field office has something else, in that program participant's contract, and then we have the participant reaching out and asking for a nutrient management plan. So, you want to make sure what's included in that contract before providing any services. That way, NRCS can approve that plan and also actually provide a make that payment. And then, by having that meeting between all the parties, NRCS and the program participant, you can establish collaboration, communication, address any question, make sure that, the three parties are on the same page. So I think when you start working, with a program participant in NRCS, this will be the very first step. By having that meeting, I mean, we can avoid a lot of issues.
So, they keep their contract. They've got some wise requests now.
Thank you, Jeff. And then
Thanks.
one last comment for 16 TSPs out there. And again, brand new applicants, if you're interested, if you need assistance, just please reach out. 16 TSPs. If you need any assistance with the modifications, renewal, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank
So
you.
now,
I'm just going to
Okay,
jump in
thank-
quick. I just want to say thank you, Miguel. I appreciate you joining us, and I couldn't agree more with what you were talking about early on communication. It's critical. Really appreciate you being here.
Yes. Thank you to Miguel, John, Jim, and Joy for providing technical assistance, Marcia for helping out too. If there's nothing else, I'm going to wish you have a good day and have a good weekend. The weather looks fantastic, at least up here. Of course, we could always use a rain. And I'm going to sign off now. Thank you.